Call this meeting in order of the Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission regular meeting December 14, 2017.
You can have to sit back there. Like this.
All right. Approval of the agenda, and we have we'll need a motion on that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and members of the commission. Today, we have with us Mr. Charlie Kilpatrick, who is the VDOT Commissioner outgoing, and he's come here today to share with us some great news about HRBT. So I'd like to propose to the commission that we amend item 4 of the agenda to subpart A, Chair's comments, and subpart B, VDOT Commissioner Kilpatrick's HRBT comments. So that's what I have for you today, sir.
Do I have a motion?
So
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? All right, we'll move right along. Next public comment period. And Donna Saab. Ms. Saab.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Donna Sy, and I live in Portsmouth. On today's agenda, it will be discussing financing, how to finance all the transportation needs of the Hampton Roads region. On Tuesday night at Portsmouth work session, there was a presentation given to inform the elected regarding more choices for travelers. The presenter explained why express lanes are being converted from underutilized HOV lanes. The other topic discussed was regarding toll relief. Toll relief is for people who earn less than $40,000. The money coming from toll relief is the Elizabeth River Crossing LLC. Portsmouth has over 1,000 people signed up for toll relief. In 1995, the General Assembly passed the Public-Private Transportation Act. On December the 5th, 2011, the Virginia Department of Transportation and the Elizabeth River Crossing LLC signed a contract, comprehensive agreement relating to the Downtown Tunnel, Midtown Tunnel, Martin Luther King Freeway Extension Project. A lawsuit was filed in the Portsmouth Circuit Court on July 13, 2012 to stop the contract for the tolls because non-elected officials made the deal. The Elizabeth River Crossing LLC would get over $22 billion for a $2 billion project. ERC LLC would obtain 13.5% profit each year, plus the toll will increase 3.5% each year. Here we are today, discussing money. All money is from the people, and we the people that work hard every day and are penalized by the state and federal government's mentality of redistribution of wealth. When is this taxation without representation going to end? And before I leave, I just want to say there's a note on the table that only people on the committee can have the refreshments. And I'm offended by that. That's just an example, decisions being made without the citizen engagement. So please remove that notice on the table, because I feel like if I want a snack, I don't have to feel like I'm stealing. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. John Gertley.
Good afternoon. It is afternoon, yeah. This group is formed because of the I think it was 2013 tax on the regional Hampton Roads Authority tax that we all pay, all the citizens, all your constituents pay. That's what this organization is all about. Now, this group and the state and VDOT has the nerve to, after we're taking our money, to now want to charge what the improvements that we're paying for and want to charge in a regressive tax that only the rich people are going to be able to afford. Mayor Tuck, Mayor Price, half of your constituents are working poor. half, and they're the people that elected you. And all you mayors have the nerve to want to put HOT lanes so only rich people can travel. Listen to the prices that happen up in DC. There's no cap on ours. You have no idea how high our taxes are going to, those toll lanes are going to be. So find another way to fund this. HOT lanes are not the answer. Your people that you've hired, consultants have told you you don't make money off of them. You're going to hire someone to run it. We're going to lose money. And all you're going to do is make private lanes for your rich friends to ride on, while your constituents have to ride in the lanes that exist now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is number 4, and the chair's comment, I'm gonna hold those to the end of the meeting, and Commissioner Kirkpatrick is next.
Down here.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. And thanks for allowing me an opportunity to speak to HRTAC. As Kevin mentioned, this will be my last meeting here. I think back from the forming of HRTAC and how far we've come in the last several years. The opening of the segment 1 of I-64, making tremendous progress on segments 2 and 3, and the high-rise bridge will be having a groundbreaking actually the first week of January. So tremendous progress has been made. I forgot to mention the interchange there at 264 underway, and segment 2 has been bid also. So again, a lot of progress we've made, and I'm here today to talk briefly about the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. And this crossing has been a point of discussion for decades, and through the efforts of HRTAC and through the environmental process, we were able to develop a project that was scalable and deliverable and fundable, and we are now pleased to announce the path forward in terms of moving towards to construction and to delivery of this facility. Real quickly, the area we're talking about is from I-564 in Norfolk to I-664 in Hampton at Hampton Coliseum. And what we have been developing and working, and we'll take out to market here, our request for qualifications will go out by the end of this week, to build at least 3 lanes in each direction, and I say at least, and I'll follow up with that in a minute, and a 4-lane tube underneath Hampton Roads. The original environmental document called for 3 lanes of interstate in each direction and a 3-lane tunnel, which likely was going to be some sort of combination reversible facility. As we've gotten further into this, we believe that now is the time and the place to deliver the proper crossing, which is a 4-lane tube, which would allow 4 lanes in each direction. The commitments to limit the right-of-way impacts in Norfolk, specifically the Willoughby Spit area, and also in Hampton and Hampton University, remain. So we with the efforts of Jim Utterback and his team, we are confident that we can fit these improvements within the right-of-way and what has been approved as part of the NEPA document. The project will also be what I could call scalable. There are what we would consider must-haves, and then things that we really think should happen, but may or may not be able to deliver as part of the initial project. But with the budget that has been provided by HRTAC, we believe that we're confident there's sufficient funding to build what we would consider the base scope of the project, which includes the 4-lane tunnel. And we actually do believe in the end condition, what we're working towards is to have what I will call 2 + 1 + 1. What that means is 2 general purpose lanes in each direction, 1 express lane in each direction, and at least during peak periods, a hard running shoulder, which would add a 2nd hot lane to the facility. So you would have 2 inside lanes and 2 outside lanes for the entire length of the project. We're also looking at addressing the overheight at the westbound tunnel. We believe there's a method of removing that impediment. Today, about a dozen vehicles a day are stopped westbound and halt traffic, and you know all the things that go on when you have to turn a truck around at the tunnel. So we believe there's opportunities there. We're going to proceed forward as a public-private partnership, but it will be a design-build contract. So Traditionally, our PPTAs, at least most recently, have been what we would call a revenue risk concession, where a toll operator would come in and they would receive the toll revenue and they would use that to fund the construction of the project. In this particular case, we believe that a design build is the where the state, at least initially, would operate the express lanes, brings better value, and I'll talk in a minute about a longer range plan that matches up with what the TPO has talked about. We intend to go out again with this procurement in beginning tomorrow. In terms of how long will this take, we're looking to shortlist teams in by March-April timeframe, and in early 2019 we would expect to have a hard bid number and be in a position to award the contract for the facility. We are purposely not precluding or favoring one tunneling technique over the other. Many of you know there's two fundamental ways of delivering this. One is an immersed tube tunnel, similar to all the facilities that we have to date, and the other is the newer board technology that the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel project is using. So as we move forward and we ultimately shortlist and pick the contractor to deliver this project, it will be, we will allow for either methodology in the development of the project. The P3 Steering Committee heard my recommendation earlier this week, and I found it to be in the public's interest to proceed forward with this project under the Public-Private Transportation Act. Again, I want to reinforce that we are using a design-build model. And the reason we chose to take the PPTA route versus the Public Procurement Act, because of the complexity of this project, we use design-build frequently. Matter of fact, most of the projects at HRTAC we're delivering for you are design-build projects. But the complexity of this particular project would have required us to fundamentally scrap our entire design-build procedures just for this one project. And the PPTA is a viable contracting vehicle that will allow competition and risk sharing all the way up through the project. So again, it's exciting time. It will take about 5 to 6 years to deliver this thing. It will be the largest project, single project in Virginia history, one of the largest in the country, if not in the world, in terms of transportation projects, highway transportation projects. So I'd be glad to answer any questions, but again, I wanted to bring this important news to this group.
Thank you. Any questions?
Great news.
It is. It's great news. It's something that everybody's been working so hard on. And Charlie, we appreciate all the work and effort and the partnership you have helped us with in this committee and this commission and everything you've done for us in the state of Virginia, and wish you well. And thank you just once again from all the members here and myself personally for everything you've done and what great leadership you have shown us through the years. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 5 are consent items. Consent items are the minutes from the September 21st, 2017 special meeting. And do I have a motion on approval of the consent items?
So moved.
So we do have a second.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We'll move right into number 6 is our action items. First action item A, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At the Commission's last meeting, as you all may recall, the Commission moved forward at the September 21st meeting to endorse our HRTAC debt management plan, and you all sent me on a charge to move forward with taking the next incremental steps towards bonding in TIFIA. A lot of work has gone into this. We've been able to engage ourselves in the solicitation of bond underwriters as well as bond trustee, and also moving forward with the initiation with bond counsel, which you'll hear today as well from the Finance Committee Chair. The efforts that have gone forward as to how we'll be prepared and ready as a commission to move forward today, following your action to do our first bond initial offering for senior lien debt in the first quarter of next calendar year. I'd like to turn the floor over, if I may, Mr. Chairman, to Finance Committee Chair, Senator Wagner, to pick up from there to report out the committee's hard work efforts and the results of your December 5th meeting. Mr. Chairman?
Senator Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Finance Committee, I can assure you, has been working very hard, and I'd first like to thank the efforts of Mayor McKinley and Supervisor Alpin, who are members of the committee. We had a number of things you're going to be asked to vote on, a series of things here, including the underwriting pool, the bond trustee, the revenue bond first initial offering or the first tranche, and also to approve a security custody services. We have gone through extensive review of all of these and think we got a great report when we go into closed session to give you. I can tell you it's a very, very important time. We heard some very, very exciting news from Commissioner Kilpatrick about the project, how large it is, and now it's time to start to pull the money together to see it actually happen. We're proposing as we move ahead to begin to borrow money. We're going to ask the committee to look at a $500 million offering here in January and February. There's a reason why January and February appears to be the time to do it. There's a series of charts here if you care to read through them. It says this is a very, very low interest period for tax exempt bonds, Virginia tax exempt bonds. It happens in January and February is a time when a lot of interest payments are made and bonds roll over. And so for those that deal in buying tax exempt securities in the Commonwealth of Virginia, they're going to have a lot of cash on hand and a need to turn that cash back into tax exempt investments throughout Virginia. So we feel it's a great time. We have gone through an extensive list of people that were interested in being underwriters, and we go into closed session. I think we can discuss that a little bit more. On December, earlier this month, we joined Commissioner Kilpatrick and the governor on the first ribbon cutting phase 1, which was very, very exciting. You know, we have about $1.6 billion worth of projects underway today, and most regions of the state would be ecstatic to have that kind of activity moving forward. And those are all been fully funded based on the revenues that we've, collected and anticipate collecting. But I think it's very, very important that we continue this momentum, and obviously we heard by these numbers the magnitude of this project. And we estimate, and the fiduciaries have estimated that by moving in January to the types of levels that we're talking about, that we're going to save ultimately $12 million to the taxpayers on the back end by taking advantage of the lower interest rates. There's a number of other reasons driving a relatively early thing. We feel fairly confident based on things we've heard and things and actions we've seen that the Federal Reserve will continue to raise interest rates next year, as they just did yesterday. And also they'll continue to draw back on the quantitative easing. Both of those are going to put pressures on the long-term interest rates. And again, more of an urgency, a sense of urgency to do that. With the authorization that we receive, hopefully today, we will continue to issue bonds, but we did not want to flood the market early on. And we believe we've set up an accounting mechanism that's been approved that allows us to avoid any thoughts or concerns about arbitrage when we start to receive this money and how we deal with the money. With this, we can keep the schedule. You heard us a very, very aggressive schedule, actually making an award basically 13 months from now. That'll be wonderful, and to be able to sit here and have that opportunity to drive through the tunnel, perhaps in 2024, 2025, we'll continue to do that. I will say, though, that on a couple of notes that I think are very, very important, is one, I can't overemphasize the importance of, and I believe every city council and county board of supervisors has put in their legislative agenda the need to put a floor on the regional gas tax, and I want to thank and compliment all of you for that. I ask that you talk to your legislators and tell them how important that is. As we went through the evaluation of interest rates and what we can anticipate, and particularly in terms of our bond ratings, which I can assure you are going to be a very, very good rating in terms of our bond rating. As we get towards the longer end and start to reach those numbers out on and borrowing additional money, that fluctuating gas tax revenue causes those that provide a rating for our bonds a lot of angst. That angst could easily turn into higher interest rates as we approach the end of all the bonds that we anticipate issuing. We need to make that go away. I mean, that's just going to add more interest. Ultimately, it's going to add more cost to the taxpayers and cost to this project. So for those reasons, everything that we're going to ask to do here is in compliance with all the procurement laws that we've gone through. Mr. Gleam has made sure that we follow that tooth and nail, and we believe we've got a first-rate team to present to you, both as underwriters as well as trustees. And with that, I could add additional information, but we're very, very excited to make it happen. Perhaps the director, a few other things you'd like to add.
Thank you, Finance Committee Chair Wagner. We have a few charts that we would like to go through, Mr. Chair and Senator Wagner, if it's okay to please the Commission. And we don't want to go through the entire 53-page presentation, but we have maybe 4 or 5 of the highlights here that I think is very important for the Commission to see, not only understand where the market is, but the reason why we need to get in the market now. So, Mr. Miller, I'd like to call you to the podium.
Good afternoon, members of the Commission. It's a pleasure to be here again. And Senator Wagner was very thorough, so I will try to be very brief. All right, slides. As has been stated, one of the primary reasons we're trying to get into credit markets now and sell some debt, interest rates are very low. The picture is worth 1,000 words. These 2 pictures communicate it very well. The top picture is kind of a 30-year history, and you can see far to the right, we are near those historical lows. I find the chart at the bottom kind of interesting. What that says is if you go out 30 years, and we are going to be selling long-term bonds, that over the past prior 30 years, interest rates have been higher 97% of the time and lower only 3% of the time. So when we say it's historically an opportune time, we mean historically is a very opportune time to be in the market. The prior chart was kind of baseline tax-exempt interest rates. To that, you typically add a credit spread. This shows triple-B, single A, and double A credit spreads, and you can see by the time you get down to the bottom line, the green line, credit spreads are also historically pretty compressed. Not a lot of extra yield for lower-rated credits. We have engaged 2 to 3 rating agencies. We do want to talk to the 3rd rating agency. We engaged them in a private feedback process, so I'm not supposed to say publicly what the ratings are, but if you've seen my prior presentations and the high quality that we expected your senior lien bonds to be in, I can say I've heard nothing to dissuade me from that prediction. So I think we'll have very low credit spreads as well that we face. The question of issuance timing, and I really just want to get straight to this chart. Kevin asked, well, we've got some money in the bank. What if we delay the bond issuance? And certainly you could cash flow some of the project expenditures for at least another year. The risk is, what if interest rates go up? Because we know we're in a very favorable time right now to sell. And so we looked at some market forecasts and made some assumptions. What if interest rates go up, modestly 18 to 35 basis points? That sounds kind of odd, but there was some market information why we chose 18 to 35 basis points. And the bottom line answer is that while delaying the bond issue, obviously you delay when you start paying interest and you draw down some of your existing cash balances. But if interest rates go up just modestly on this 30 or longer year bond deal, it's going to cost you 12 or 13 million. And that's only if rates increased in the next year 18 to 35 basis points. So we think that now is a great time, and that the risk of delaying could cost you a lot of money. So really the kind of rationale, and this was in the September presentation, but I think it bears repeating now. You've adopted a 6-year plan. You've adopted the HRTAC component of PPO's 2040 long-range transportation plan. And each of those plans you've adopted have billions of dollars of debt incorporated into the plan to deliver those projects on the schedule that has been shown. Issuing this debt is not going to allow you to accelerate or add projects into that plan, but if you didn't issue the debt, you would have to start delaying some of the projects. So you've adopted a plan, and to implement those plans and those projects on the schedule that has been anticipated is going to require some debt issuance. you have projects, or VDOT has projects under construction. You've entered into a number of standard project agreements that commits HRTAC to funding about $1.2 billion for those projects out of the Hampton Roads Transportation Fund. Knowing that you plan to issue debt, you hired bond counsel, you have previously adopted a bond resolution. That bond resolution has been validated by the courts. In September, you endorsed a debt management plan to start implementing this debt. Based on that endorsement, we have done underwriter requests for proposals, trustee requests for proposals. We've begun drafting a lot of bond documents. And with your approval today, we will be in a position to sell bonds in January. There's a January 31st Federal Reserve meeting. We're going to hope to get into the market before that meeting and probably close in mid-February, again, with your approval. Kevin asked, said he's been asked, how do we know we can repay these bonds? Well, this shows a simple 30-year level debt service, the bars at the bottom, versus the current and projected Hampton Roads Transportation Fund. You can see you have far more revenues than debt service. We may actually go out longer than 30 years, but I think this picture makes the point. You have plenty of money to repay these bonds, and that's one of the reasons why you'll see that reflected in high credit quality ratings. That's all from my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Okay.
When you said you could go out further than 30 years, I assume on the chart, not on bond, not a 40 or 50-year bond, correct? When you say you could go out more than 30 years.
We've been discussing going out to 40 years. The bond authorization in front of you allows us to go out to 40 years. We have not set the exact amortization, but the logic that I said for 30 years applies to 40 years. Long-term rates historically very low. We know over the next 6 or so years of construction, we're going to be issuing bonds extending out that far. And so the logic is, if rates are low there now, let's go ahead and sell out long. We can sell shorter later if interest rates are at a more elevated level.
I'd just like to have a deeper dive conversation on a 40-year versus a 30-year at that point in time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, we also have bond counsel here, George Consalvo, in case anyone does have any questions about the bond documents and the process in which that's moving forward. He's available to answer any questions here as we go through this today. There's a series and sequence of order. First of all, are there any questions for Mr. Consalvo on to the podium? Okay. We have several stair-stepped, shall we say, actions that are required of the commission, recommendations coming out of the Finance Committee. The first is action item 6A. We can pull that up on the screen. Mr. Kimball's going to work on that real quick. So I'll go forward and read the motion under council's observation, and then, Mr. Chair, I'll turn this over to the floor, back over to you for entertaining that motion. The motion is for the commission to approve the plan for an initial 2018 HRTAC Hampton Roads Transportation Fund bond offering, under which up to $500 million in HRTF senior lien revenue bonds would be issued, beginning during the first quarter of calendar year 2018, and confirms its preparedness to consider appropriate actions and provide the appropriate authorizations necessary to advance the issuance. Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do I have someone that will bring that motion up?
So moved.
So moved, second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
All right, very good. Now, as I said, there's a stair-step of motions now that the commission has put forth that they want to move forward with the up to $500 million issuance. This is the series of resolutions that set forth, bring us into the perspective, Mr. Chair, and members of the commission, as to how we go about doing this from this point forward. The bond underwriter RFP is item number 6B. In order for us to move forward, obviously we have to have a series of underwriters, senior and then 2 co-managers is where we're going forward with this. We did take this solicitation out for public proposal. In the process of doing that, we had an ad hoc bond underwriter pool. for the RFP Evaluation Committee, and that was established. We met on, received 20 proposals, by the way, and met on November 27th and 28th to discuss the proposals and also interview a short list of those proposers. Moving forward with this process, the December 5th Finance Committee meeting, which Chairman Senator Wagner of the Finance Committee moved forward in his comments as well. We fully briefed behind closed doors at the December 5th meeting under Chair Wagner's leadership of the Finance Committee. They endorsed the recommendations that we brought forward. And in that, the Finance Committee had recommended for approval of the Commission, one, the recommended list of bond underwriters to be included in the underwriter pool, that is the entire pool of 20, and then two, the bond underwriters from the pool selected to be engaged in the inaugural HRTAC bond offering, which just took action on moving forward with. So the motion, if I may read it, is the motion is the Commission approves, one, the recommended list of bond underwriters to be included in the Commission's pool of potential underwriters, and two, the 3 bond underwriters from the pool that have been selected to be engaged as the inaugural HRTAC bond offering, and the Commission authorizes the HRTAC chair to execute and deliver the necessary agreement with the selected HRTAC bond underwriters to be engaged during the calendar year 2018 bond issuance process. I'll turn the floor over to the council who may have some comments.
Sure. Thank you, Executive Director. I think that it would be appropriate at this time for maybe Senator Wagner to explain who the recommended 3 are. There's a senior underwriter and then 2 co-underwriters. And from that, those will lead the inaugural bond offering. And if there are any questions about the process, we could, I would recommend that you do so in closed session. But if there are no questions about the process, certainly Senator Wagner could carry forward with the motion and the 3 named from the list.
Senator Wagner?
Yeah, we had, when we went through the list, there was, like you say, 20 to choose from. The RFP evaluation team did an excellent job. And then we looked at Wells Fargo, would be the principal at this point, Merrill Lynch, and what was the third name again? JP Morgan, yeah. So we have those 3, all very quality firms, all with great experience, particularly Merrill Lynch and Wells Fargo with a vast wealth of experience on transportation projects in Virginia, Garvey bonds and such. So we think we got an experienced team, not just, you know, A+ rated institutions, but also ones with deep experience within Virginia. And so that's the recommended team.
Any questions? Okay. We have a motion on the floor. So read. Do I have any backing for the motion? So moved. Second? Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, move on to C. Director?
Thank you, Chair Hippel, and also thank you, Finance Committee Chair Wagner as well. Moving forward with item 6C, this is our third of 4 motions relative to relating directly to the bonding. We move forward with, under the Commission's authorization, we set forth an RFP for bond trustee services, the next incremental step. In that evaluation, we moved forward with entertaining, I believe it was 7 proposers that came in and moved forward. Of those 7 proposals, our ad hoc bond trustee RFP evaluation committee met on November the 28th to evaluate those proposals, and we also moved forward with a recommendation following the full briefing with Chair Wagner's committee, the Finance Committee of HRTAC, at its December 5th meeting. So moving forward with that, out of the Finance Committee, Chair Wagner was compelled to bring forward a recommendation of approval of a bond trustee for the first HRTAC bond issuance, and also recommend the Commission approve the issuance and intended award of that contract for the selected trustee, and authorize the HRTAC chair to execute and deliver the necessary agreement with the selected HRTAC bond trustee. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this moment. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and read the motion, Mr. Chair.
Any questions? Motion, please.
All right. The motion is the Commission accept the bond trustee RFP evaluation committee's recommendation to award a contract to the selected firm, approve the issuance of an intent to award the contract to that firm and authorizes the ultimate execution and delivery by the HRTAC chair of the necessary agreement with the selected HRTAC bond trustee to be engaged for the inaugural HRTAC bond offering and any further senior or subordinate lien or HRTF revenue bonds issued pursuant to that indenture.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. I need a second.
Second.
Perfect.
We need to name the trustee as well.
And second.
Yes. So, yes, Mr. Chair, do you want to do the name?
No, you can name it.
Okay. All right, the selected firm was Wilmington Trust.
Okay, I have a first, and I believe I have a second. Is that correct? Second. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, now our next one will be D, and we'll have a roll call on D. Right. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair Hippel, and also Finance Committee Chair Senator Wagner. This is the last step of the series of actions today that lead forward with the HRTAC bond resolution for issuance of Series 2018 Hampton Roads Transportation Fund Revenue Bond. The Finance Committee, in its December 5th meeting, following a full and exhaustive overview and question and answer session, moved forward with a recommendation that the Commission advance authorizing the issuance of a tax-exempt Hampton Roads Transportation Fund Senior Lien Revenue Bond in a principal amount not to exceed $500 million to reimburse the Commission for and provide a source of funds for the cost of new construction projects on new or existing highways, bridges, and tunnels in Hampton Road. I'll turn the floor over to Councilor Glima to walk through the detailed motion and also commence the roll call vote as well. Mr. Chairman, the floor back to you before going to Mr. Glima for any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Lynn?
So, Mr. Kimbrell, if you could bring up on the screen the resolution and show the population in the blank spaces of the firms that have been approved as the bond trustee, and then, okay, thank you very much. So, these resolutions delegate the authority to the chair and the executive director to carry forward the inaugural bond proceeding. It's important to note that the parameters that the commission are giving to the executive director are that the true interest cost of the formal award cannot exceed 5%, and the final maturity date cannot be later than 40 days from the date of the issuance. The executive director is charged with working with bond counsel and PFM as well as myself to finalize the documents in accordance with those parameters. And if there are any questions, I think I would also ask that Mr. Consalvo make himself available to answer those, since he is the science behind this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think just as a correction to what our attorney said, it's not 40 days, it's 40 years.
40 years, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's
Thank you.
Thank you.
That wouldn't be a good loan.
Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Jones brought this up before, but it seems like a good time to really ask this question. Have we used 40-year bonds in the past? It seems to me it's always been 30-year bonds. Do you understand why we're doing 40, like 30, and what the cost benefits are of that?
This will be the first time on the 40-year bonds. I'll let our PFM expert come up and speak to the benefit cost and the rationale on this based on the percentage curve, and also the long-term tranche gives us some opportunities to take advantage of the market and also set forth a strategy that gives us a tranche of where we can come behind that. So David, I'll turn on.
I can't give an exhaustive listing. I could do some research. I do know that last year Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel went out, if not exactly to 40, close to 40 years with their Thimble Shoal Tunnel financing. I'm pretty sure the city of Chesapeake, when they financed Dominion Boulevard, went out at least 35 years. I don't, I'm just kind of doing this off of memory. If you want some more research, I can do some more research. Obviously, HRTAC has not issued before, so there's no precedent with this agency. But again, the rationale is that long-term rates are very low right now. We expect them to be higher in the future, and we're kind of hedging that risk of interest rates going up by going long now. We're going to be issuing more bonds in the future, and if interest rates are higher, we can then come back and issue shorter term in the future.
One additional thing I would say is the resolution authorizes up to 40 years, and basically that's the statutory limit. So this doesn't lock the commission into issuing 40-year bonds. It just gives you the option to go up to 40 years. We can obviously issue 30-year bonds and 35-year bonds too.
Mr. Chairman's question, I've
Yes,
asked a
sir.
question for Mayor West, actually.
I'm checked.
I was checking to see what the 104 expansion the city of Chesapeake took on, that, whether 135 or whatever. And Rick, you can just back you whenever. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, how do you turn the mic off?
Sometimes it works.
I do have one question.
Yes,
So
sir.
if I understand properly, then the discretion of who does up to the 40 years is left to the executive director and whom? George?
You leave it to the executive director within these parameters.
I understand that.
Right.
Yes. So if for whatever reason on the bond sale, the parameters are not met, we have to come back to this commission to get it approved. You have to be within the parameters. And obviously, the parameters are set high. We don't expect, 5% total interest cost is much more than we would anticipate in this issue.
Does that answer your questions? Any other questions? Any other questions? All right.
So the motion would be to approve HRTAC Resolution 2017-08, authorizing the issuance by the Commission of up to $500 million in HRTF revenue bonds, and the resolution as annotated on the screen today, including Wilmington Trust as the bond trustee, Wells Fargo as the senior underwriter, Bank of America, and JP Morgan as the co-underwriters.
Second.
We need a second.
Any second?
Second.
Second. Okay, roll call.
Do the roll call. Mr. West? Yes. Mr. Abel?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes.
Mr. Hippel?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Sessom?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Castro?
Abstain.
Senator Wagner?
Yes.
Delegate Jones?
No.
Delegate Stolley? Delegate Cantor absent. Motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Senator Wagner. This thing keeps going on. Senator Wagner, I appreciate everything you have done and your team. The director's told me how many times y'all have been up here and how much y'all have worked and how much time you put in. So your entire team deserves a big round of applause for all the work you have put in. And I appreciate everything that y'all have done for this committee. Thank you. All right, next. Moving on to E.
Thank you, Chair Hippel. Agenda item 6E before the commission today is the security custody services resolution, moving forward with the security custody services evaluation committee's recommendation. I'll turn the floor over to back over to Senator Wagner. You are chair of our RFP evaluation committee for security custody services, and if you'd like to make some comments to that and the outcome of that, or I'll be happy to handle that for you either way, sir.
Go ahead, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so during the last business year, we moved forward with this effort. During 2015, we engaged banking services and custody of funds and investment for the HRTF. Subsequently, we moved on with looking for a new security custody services provider through an exhaustive search and evaluation of the proposals, and also I'd like to thank council for their exhaustive work on negotiating an agreement We were able to come to terms through our meeting process. We certainly met on June the 5th and again on September the 6th. And then the Finance Committee was fully briefed of the outcome and the parameters of the agreement that had been struck with the proposer in draft behind closed doors on December the 5th. So in doing that, Mr. Chairman, are there any questions that may come about as this action item, or I'll go ahead and read the motion?
Any questions?
All right. The counselor is offered to read the parameters of the term of the agreement, which he'll give us the highlights on that before we take the action. Thank you.
So the initial term is 1 year. HRTAC may renew the agreement for successive terms of 1 year each 3 times. HRTAC may terminate without cause on 30 days' notice, and the counterparty bank has a limited termination right if it ceases providing custodial services in the Commonwealth or after the 30-month anniversary of the agreement, but they must give 180 days' notice. For safekeeping of assets, it's 1 basis point on the first 35 million, half a basis point on the next 40 million, and 0.4 basis points for any amounts greater than 75 million.
Thank you, Tom. Would you read the motion?
Yes, sir. The motion is the Commission accept the recommendation of the Security Custody Service RFP Evaluation Committee to award a contract to U.S. Bank, approve the issuance of intent to award the contract to that bank, and authorizes the HRTAC chair to ultimately execute and deliver the prepared security custody services agreement with that bank.
All right, that's the motion. Do I have any backing for this motion?
Second.
Fair first?
First.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay. Move on to that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Before you today is a document outside of your bound documents. You'll find it underneath is the fiscal year 2017 audited financial statement. As you know, the Code of Virginia requires that the Auditor of Public Accounts conduct an annual audit of HRTAC. PB Morris LLP was engaged by the APA several years ago and has continued forward with that contract with the APA. PB Morris conducted the audit report, and there were no material weaknesses or deficiencies in any of the internal controls or processes of the HRTAC financial activities of the Commission for the year in review. And all information was free of any material misstatements. The PB Morris is here today to answer any questions. You will find a copy of the report document with you, as well as the management letter from the from PB Morris to the members of the Commission. Having said that, sir, are there any questions that PB Morris might be able to answer? They're certainly available here today, as well as Nancy Collins, CFO from HRTAC.
Any questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank Kevin. This is the second audit that we've had with no outstanding issues whatsoever. A very, very clean audit. And just want to compliment Kevin and his staff, and particularly folks that assist us. Danette and company from Hampton Roads Planning District that we contract with to keep these books clean, and I'm very pleased.
Thank you.
All right, if you'd like, sir, I'll read the motion.
Yes, sir.
The motion is the Commission approves the HRTAC FY 2017 audited financial and compliance report and authorizes the Executive Director to distribute the report document for public access and viewing.
All right, do I have any backing for this motion? All right, a first and a second. All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? All right, G.
Thank you, sir. Item G, the last of our action agenda items today, involves a report out from the Finance Committee Chair on the P3, potential P3 guidelines for HRTAC. And we also have a presentation from our General Counsel, Don Merkel, who has prepared that for us here today. I'll turn the floor over to Finance Committee Chair Wagner, if he has any comments before Ms. Merkel steps to the podium.
Mr. Chairman, and I will be brief. Within the enabling legislation, the General Assembly that set up HRTAC to begin with, it spoke to the ability to issue P3 documents, P3 contracts. We thought it appropriate we put guidelines together probably not in anticipation of issuing our own contracts, but the ability to accept a P3 proposal for consideration as we move forward. I think it's important that we look beyond what we plan and what TPOs authorized to date and look forward to the future. I would hope, and I've come off agenda to ask Kevin to give us an update of our work towards trying to get the TIFIA, get into the TIFIA program and get access to the TIFIA loan program, because I think that will perhaps alleviate the need for us to issue bonds in the open market and work with the federal government to really think beyond what we've approved today. Obviously very, very excited, but I think it's important that part of the floor on the gas tax to continue to have the revenue streams to allow us to start the planning on the next phase. We all know in this room how long it's taken for us to get the permits and the approvals to move forward. If we take a break, and right now, without some floors and some other actions on behalf of this, we're gonna have up to a 10-year, decade break where we're not planning and moving forward, and I don't think this community and this region can afford to have that kind of break. I think we need to look forward in the future. I hope at the next meeting, Kevin, you can talk to the progress made that we're working on right now towards getting into the TIFIA program as a region here to promote a regional transportation system. But with that, I think that this commission ought to have, if somebody's got an interesting P3 proposal, we at least ought to have the guidelines authorized by the legislation to allow us to look at those P3 projects, perhaps not to replace VDOT. I would certainly anticipate VDOT being the contracting agency. That's their job. But allow us the opportunity to at least take proposals from folks that might have some unique ideas and do that, and that's all these guidelines do. We won't be actually voting on the guidelines. I believe they're in draft form today, and they'll be taken up at the next meeting. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Kevin.
Sure. Thank you, sir, and I'd like to call Councilor Merkel to the podium to run through her slides.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Kevin and Senator Wagner. I'm going to be very brief as well. I'm sure you can read these, but I think the most important thing to highlight is one that Mr. Kilpatrick brought up, and that the PPTA, Public-Private Transportation Act, is a supplemental and alternative to the regular Virginia Public Procurement Act. So it gives you another avenue for being able to procure projects, and as Senator Wagner pointed out, it's also the way that enables you to accept unsolicited proposals. So if you have people out there in the private sector who are coming up with better ideas than anybody here at VDOT is, they have a mechanism to submit those, and they cannot do it until you have your P guidelines in place. We have prepared the P3 guidelines for HRTAC to comport with the law, and they follow very closely to what VDOT already does, so they're kind of tried and true guidelines. And as Senator Wagner pointed out, it does not commit HRTAC to engage in any P3 projects. It just permits you to have a tool so that if the opportunity ever arises where you want to, then you have that available to you rather than having to go through this process at the last minute. I think that pretty much covers everything, and the reason that we're recommending that you go ahead and accept these guidelines now, regardless of whether you think you'll ever have a triple P that HRTAC would alone be tackling. So if there's any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
A couple things. I see on slide 4, you are reflecting the code changes in 2017, I guess, of the P3, PPTA that we did in Richmond the last couple of years, correct?
Yes.
And you said you will follow closely what VDOT does. Is that, because you'll be following the same law as VDOT, if you can just say closely, if you don't mind, just elaborate a little bit on what, how close or.
Right, so VDOT has things that they have to do and procedures that they have to follow that HRTAC doesn't. There are specific laws that deal just with VDOT, but specifically the same kind of structure, how they accept the unsolicited proposals, how they publish them, looking at whether it's competitive sealed bidding, competitive negotiation, procurements, those kind of guidelines. As I said, VDOT's is very comprehensive, and so their guidelines were something that, rather than reinventing the wheel, it was good to follow.
I'm not sure. Can you give me an example that would be different that VDOT has that we would not be doing?
And I apologize, I don't have the code in front of me. They do have to submit to agree with, say, commissioner or the CTB, that, and they have specific things that they have to do that VDOT has to do that
Right, and
the
the
political
reason I'm-
subdivision would not.
And the reason I'm kind of grilling you, I carried that legislation and we did reform it because of the, the Elizabeth River crossings and Route 460. So I just want to make sure that we've got all the provisions and precautions and safety valves in there about any material change. You have to come back and publicly say, this has changed from when you went out to request, et cetera.
Right, we have in there, it's the finding of the public interest. You have to verify that again before it goes out.
Right, okay.
All of those mechanisms are in there.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Councilman, since,
Okay, since we've lost one member, we will not be voting on this. This will be carried on to the April meeting. All right. Next, we'll go into item number 7, information items.
didn't have the population with Virginia Beach being absent.
Yeah.
No, Frank's quit out of town. Are we talking about Will or are we talking about?
Will.
Mayor Sessions.
Mayor Sessions did have to, he just got.
Yeah, he left 3 minutes early.
We were on schedule. So where we'll go with this, Mr. Chairman, is we'll bring it back to the commission. What we will do in April is ask for permission to have the authorization for the public meeting, public hearing, solicit public input, and then come back at the annual meeting in June.
Thank you.
Is that all right?
That sounds good.
Okay.
All right, number 7, information items.
All right, thank you, Chair Hippel. Moving forward, we have the HRTAC monthly financial report in 7A, which is before you. Just to give you some highlights of where we are as of November, all bank balances, we're looking at $523,897,091 in cash on hand. Of that, also, we have moving forward, we have at DB&T, who is our current custodial, is $323,645,364. And at the local government investment pool, LGIP, the commission has $186,279,513. We also have at Union Bank and Trust Company, we have 2 accounts there, Union Checking and the Union Sweep and Money Market. All 3 of those combined all in is a total of $13,972,214 liquid dollars in our bank account at Union. I'm here to answer any questions that you all may have. I'm moving forward on this as an information item. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions? Okay. Number 8.
All right, 7B, I'd like to turn the floor over to VDOT Administrator Overback to give us an update on his great work and where he is on all the projects that are under contract with HRTAC.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Page. Just real quick, the 7B is actually outside the package, so it should be in the bottom. But the one that's in the package is November, so the biggest 3 major things that changed from November to December is obviously segment 1 is completed, so on time and on schedule, and we actually are a little bit under budget. I'll come back to that in a minute. Segment 2 is really made up a lot of time, so the key part of the segment 2 is the bridges, and they're hoping to have the bridges substantially complete by the spring. So they are right now kind of getting back on schedule. So, and as Commissioner mentioned, segment 3, which goes from 199 to 199 to Williamsburg, that was awarded by the CTB last week for $178 million. So that's a significant project. Also, we're continuing on the interchange. As you can see, the drill shafts are moving. They're pouring the pier caps and moving along on that. The second part of that, so basically from Newtown interchange to Wichita interchange, including the Greenwich flyover, that was awarded last week, so it was $105 million. So a good bid on that project. So really, with those 2 additions and awarded, as Senator Wagner mentioned, we now really are even taking off segment 1, we're over $1 billion in construction in this area right now. So about $1.1 billion in contracts on the street right now. So as we go forward, it looks like late 18, early 19, we could have at least 7 major, or 6, 7 major projects under construction. So you won't go anywhere without seeing a cone or a Jersey barrier or something. So should be might be a good time to take an extended vacation for about 6 months. The next couple of projects we'll finish up next year or so, in 19, I think, actually. So that would be segment 2 and the first part of the interchange. As you know, we got the notice to proceed on a high-rise bridge, and that team should be in the water starting the bridge construction later this spring, coming spring. So that's all I had. We touched on HRBT, so a lot of balls in the air right now.
Yes, sir. I want to thank you for all your hard work this year with this commission as well, and we appreciate everything you do. We look forward to next year and more production and more things moving. But there is a lot of projects. This group ought to be very proud of where we're going and what's going on and how well we're working together. And I want to thank each and every one of you for that. And thanks.
Mr. Chairman, before we
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a statement. There aren't many people that travel 64 as much as Delegate Jones or Senator Wagner or myself, at least in this room. But I got to tell you, when you drive Interstate 64 now and you pass the Jefferson interchange, it's kind of like those angels and sunshine. I mean, it's fabulous. It makes the trip so much easier. It's such a smooth ride, and I can't wait for that whole thing to be done. VDOT has done a marvelous job on this, and you know, people like to pick on state agencies a lot, and VDOT sometimes in particular, not as much as DMV, but anyway. But I will tell you that I'm extraordinarily grateful to the people at VDOT for the job they've done on this. It makes our commute so much better, and I know for all the constituents, it makes life a whole lot easier. So thank you very much, sir.
I would agree. And round of applause for that. Any other comments? All right. Now we'll move into the special recognition, and we have a few members that are moving and retiring. Amelia, when I started in this group, she was the first lady on that. And if you could come up forward. She showed me a lot of things and a lot of areas that I should look at and what not to do, what to do. She told me I told you not to do that when I did certain things, and kind of guided me through the process. So my hat's off to her. 31 years of service to our community. That's unbelievable. Now, I know you didn't know this, but we did have a vote last night, and we're not going to let you retire. And I wish you all the best in everything you do. And thank you so much for everything you've done for us. And this is a little recognition on everything that you put forth for us and what you've done for this committee and each member. And we love you and we thank you very much. And we're sorry to see you go, but we're happy to see you move forward in your life.
This was a great surprise. Thank you so much, Chairman Hippo and member of this commission. All I can say, it's been really a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege for me to work with this great commission for all those years. I've always put my very best, and just thank you for giving me the chance to work on all these great projects. And also be part of that, the first year that you had to work very hard to establish this commission. So thank you again, thank you so much, and it's been really a pleasure to work with Kevin Case, your executive director, and the great coordination that we've had with VDOT, us, Bob Crum, and all the staff. So thank you very much, appreciate it.
And we expect you to keep your telephone on too. All started together, and he's worked very hard on this commission and done exceptional work, finance and everything else. In fact, he got called out of the field the other day, Rex, while he was working, because we needed him here on staff and in order to do what we needed to do. He came on in with his work clothes on and helped us, rolled up the sleeves and did what he needed to do. So Rex, if I could have you come up. I appreciate all your hard work. I know each member does and everything. And we'll give you this little token of appreciation and all the hard work you've done. And I hope you don't make yourself scarce to us.
All right, appreciate
And I'd love to come out to the phone one day and
All right,
check
do
it
it.
out.
Do it.
You want to tell them?
Yeah, sure. It's been a pleasure, I declare. I've started looking around the room and just the relationships that I've made. You know, Mr. Page back here, he's been giving me a hard time for about 3 years. I'm telling you.
It's almost over.
But he's not just executive director, I always consider you a friend. You should know that. And we are fortunate to have a man in that role serving us. He's quite competent. And when I think of competence, sometimes the epitome of competence, I think of, where's Tom good? Did he leave our council? But that his solemn demeanor serves him well when he gives us counsel, does it not? He's been great to work with also. John Malvin's gone, our representative, I think he serves us well. Jim Utterback. Jim, thank you so much. Jim and Charlie both, they're just so approachable. You don't find a lot of people in a position like that. Always works with us and has been willing to meet with me at any time at all. And working with Senator Wagner on the Finance Committee, the reason he does most of the presentations is because he's done most of the work. And he is very good in the role that he plays. But I honestly think this commission sets a good example of what happens when a community can collaborate together and things that can happen as a result of that. So I commend all of you that Hampton Roads has come together here, and we've done some outstanding and even extraordinary things, I think, that will serve our citizens well going forward. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Oh.
Alan couldn't make it today, and we were going to present him as well with an award on all his artwork and the former mayor of Chesapeake and what he has done for this committee. But he couldn't make it today, and we'll present this to him later. But if I can have a round of applause for Alan Krasnov and all this. All right. Our next HRTAC regular board meeting will be April 19, 2018, 12:30 here in this building. Motion for adjournment? Second? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay? Any abstentions?